for the Economic Development Commission Wednesday evening, July 28, 2021. We are going to start off the meeting with a presentation from the Chair Council, and Cheryl and I spoke a while back. The reason I asked for this, we kind of had a little brief introduction last meeting, but I'd like to do a little more in-depth educational session today. And my thinking behind all of this is, as I understand what the Spirit Council is all about, and thinking about diversity, inclusion, and a lot of other aspects of how do you make our town better. This, from an economic development perspective, is something that you'd like to market, that you'd like to promote, you'd like to tell other people around you. And this is what our town is doing. I think to the extent that we better understand what you're all about and can help you in many ways, that'd be terrific. Because I think you will help drive economic development in the town of Simsbury. So I'm very much looking forward to this presentation, and I'll turn it over to the two of you to take us through a deeper dive.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Just for the home audience, I'm Cheryl Cook. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Simsbury Spirit Council. This is Nicole Kodak, the other co-chair. So we are here today as part of our outreach mission from the Spirit Council. We have found that sometimes it's hard for people to understand what the Spirit Council is all about, why we exist, what it is we're supposed to be doing. So we're here today to hopefully clarify some of that for all of you. And we wanted to do that for you in particular because, as Bob mentioned, we think that diversity is good for economic development, that there are opportunities for businesses to promote diversity in an inclusive, welcoming atmosphere, and there are opportunities for businesses who might want to be in Simsbury to find that a desirable attribute for starting a business here. So we'll go to the next slide. Everybody always says, what does Spirit stand for? I know it's kind of a weird name, but we got that from the Justice Department. The Justice Department actually has a program for its cities. They started it for cities, but we changed the S to Simsbury Problem Identification and Resolution of Issues Together. And if you go to the next slide, you will see where we started. We started a few years ago with an incident at the high school. We asked, the Community for Care, which I also chair, was asked by the Board of Education to come in and find a way to facilitate a community forum to discuss issues in town that seemed to be a problem at the time. So the Department of Justice had this program available, so we availed ourselves of it. After the forum, which 100 people participated in, from business leaders, clergy, students, parents, elected officials, police, law enforcement, educators, everybody. So it was very good. There is a report that you can read on the town website that came out of that forum. And after that, the Spirit Council was born, not as a town committee at that point, but as a subcommittee of the Community for Care. So as we formed, defined our mission, developed subcommittees. By March of 2020, we had our first co-program with the Community for Care on implicit bias. It was great. And the next day, the whole world shut down. So you can't actually watch the program online. SCTV has the tape of it. It was great. A lot of people came and had some very frank discussion. And that was where we started. We kind of that birthed our idea for having conversations between people who might disagree on where we're going with this topic, but would welcome the discussion. So after some conversations with the town, we asked to become a regular town committee. And in September of last year, we became a town committee. And about the same time, the Board of Selectmen passed the resolution declaring racism to be a public health crisis. And we were off to the races. So since then, we have moved into our subcommittee programs and our Let's Talk series. And I'm going to let Nicole pick up where we are with that. Well, first with our members. Do you have the slide with the members?
Lost my connection, but
Oh, no.
We can go back one minute. I will tell you the one thing we intentionally chose, we originally started with a very nice linear graphic to show our path forward. And then we were like, actually, it's meandering, starting and never ending. Like it could be ongoing work that will just change and how the complexion of it is, what the data is telling us and so forth. So we thought that meandering road was an appropriate.
We're not a long and winding road.
Theme song. We're not gonna have that.
I'm not
theme
gonna
song.
do it.
Our vision and our mission. You want to talk about that before I take over?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So our vision is that Simsbury is a town that welcomes, celebrates, and takes action to support diversity and inclusion among current and future community members. So we're forward thinking, and we want to be diversity champions where all voices are welcome, and each and every individual can live, work, learn, and play in a safe environment with meaningful and healthy relationships.
We're back.
So the next slide shows you our members. There are 18 that we are approved for. Oh, look at the animation.
Oh, the animation is
Those people
going.
getting large, those are our.
These are our subcommittee chairs.
Isn't
Nice.
that awesome?
We're getting really techie.
And we have some town liaisons at the bottom there. Chief Bolter and Officer Cushman come regularly to our meetings. Sue Lemke for our connection with the Equity Council. The Equity Council was formed after the forum in May 2019 for school issues. This council is on town issues. Lindsay is our liaison for the library, and Kristen is our staff liaison for social services and community services. So there's 18 of us, and we have monthly meetings. We want to go forward. We'll start talking about how we break down our work. Wow, we really get paid. Since September 2019, we had a 4-month pause with COVID, but we've been together for 21 months until through June. We've had 13 council meetings, 17 subcommittee meetings. We basically have formed 4 subcommittees, which really came from hundreds of suggestions from that May forum that we then bucketed with the help of Chris Kelly into clumps of related work. And the ones that we as a council voted on to be the top priorities to start first are these 4. Events, outreach, data and audit, and housing. Housing was not there before. We had 3.
Housing is it?
Housing is new, we'll talk about that in a moment. But we do now have a housing subcommittee. So if you go forward, I'll show you the next level of information. We'll get into each of these.
We're gonna fill the circle.
Yes, we will.
There it is.
So when the Board of Selectmen endorsed the resolution declaring racism a public health crisis, they had a lot of data from Farmington Valley Health District. And we recently, several months ago, just said, we have our subcommittee work that we're doing, but what are we doing specifically to plug into formal things that are helping the resolution move forward for our town? The resolution has 5 areas. Don't you love that Wi-Fi?
It's okay, you're doing fine.
And the 5 areas are education, food security, criminal justice, health, and housing, and equity of access for those 5 areas. These are very routine in most of the resolutions, right? So we looked at what we're doing in those 5 areas, and
Let's do that.
all right, so I'll go in order. But basically, we have a formal plug-in to each of these 5 areas except for housing, which is why we'll talk about that in a moment. We have, one of our spirit members is a police commissioner working with the police commission. And we have police representation on our task force. So in terms of, I know that Chief Bolter had done a review of his department like a year ago almost, and published that information online. So very partnership oriented, transparent, and willing to find the data and work on where we need to make progress. Education is Sue Lemke leading the Equity Council. I think 4 members of Spirit are also on the Equity Council, including me, so we're very tightly connected. And I know that the chair of the Board of Ed is coming to our September meeting to talk about further ways we can work together and not just separately.
Mhm.
Food security, we're working with Kristen and Community for Care, with, Cheese Day and looking at resident needs and so forth. So that's something we have information and connection to help. Health, we have a liaison for the Farmington Valley Health District, and Julie, last name?
Jen
Jen
Curtanis.
Curtanis is
Yeah.
coming for September meeting as well
Mhm.
to present what data they have and what their eyes are on for us to move forward. And then that leaves the housing area. And we didn't have an official plug-in because housing crosses zoning, planning, EDC, board of selectmen and so forth. So, and we know it's a hot issue right now in town, in many towns. And so we asked the board of selectmen to approve a subcommittee, and they did, and we'll talk about it. So, our events work, what we've done is we basically launched the one product we have for the town, which is our Let's Talk events. These are monthly conversations that have this past year been in partnership with the library by Zoom and focus on the heritage calendar topics. So we started with, in the summer, what's the difference between not racist and anti-racist? And let's explore that. And there was a lot of discussion, and people of color and not color were like, well, wait a minute. I then maybe have a lens toward another race that I didn't realize. So it was really an interesting dialogue. We didn't take action. It wasn't to enact policies. It's to talk and listen and engage. We've
We
done,
actually did 2 of those.
we did 2 of those.
Yeah, because people wanted to talk about it.
And they were both in August. So we've done one on Hispanic heritage, disability awareness, Indigenous people, all the way through.
It's on page 7 of your handout that you got in your package.
So now we're looking forward to next year and what topics we're gonna have for our Let's Talk. And we're deciding whether or not we'll have equity topics or whether we'll continue, because we have now developed partnerships with many organizations around the state. We've had leaders in the areas of human trafficking in Connecticut come, and a representative from our police force. We've had leaders in disability engagement. We've had leaders in Attorney General Tom came and talked to us about stopping AAPI hate during that month. So we've had some pretty significant connections. We don't want to just walk away from that.
Right. Our largest forum was the housing forum. It was one of the things that's kind of spurred on our discussion about housing. I think Jackie was there. It was a lot of people online.
Over 100.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was, it got rather heated at times, but but I think what that shows is that people have a lot to say about that, and we want to be that space where people can feel like we're gonna hold these forums and we're not going to, we're not prejudging, we're not leaning, we're not steering. We want people to come in and say, look, this is why I think you should or shouldn't do this. This is how I feel about, what's going on in town. This is what I'm afraid of. This is what, this is what I experience in my life. So we've tried through the Let's Talk series to be a place where people will feel like, oh, we can have these community forums once a month. And we are going to continue to do that. They've been very popular, and you engage people.
That's why.
It's been great. And, I think that we should continue to do that on a variety of topics. When we did Hispanic Heritage Month, we had people come on and there was one woman, and we said, well, so what made you come tonight? We were always curious, how people, and she said, I wanted to see if there were other Hispanic people in Simsbury. And, and we felt good about saying, look, there's these people you can connect, and they did. One of them actually joined our committee. So we were, yeah. So I mean,
that every one of those talks, I would say, changes a little bit about how we think about what we're doing and who we are and what awareness we have for what's going on in our town. And we have had several people join our council through that, which has been really.
Even though our membership list is full, the Board of Selectmen has limited us to 18 members. We do have a volunteer list. So people have contacted us and said, I want to help with this or that. And we have availed ourselves of those resources on occasion. And I'm sure we're going to do it more in the future.
The event upcoming that I want to keep your eye on is September Feast, which is the
Mhm.
rebranded September Fest, I guess.
Mhm.
And so we're very actively working with Missy Nuno and her group to help with food vendor suggestions, performers, spoken word artisans, whatever, to plug into that.
That's right.
That's exciting.
It came from one of those things we heard at the forum.
Yeah.
Was that, why don't people with different backgrounds, different skin colors, different ethnicities want to come to Simsbury and enjoy what we have? And I had a gentleman from Hartford come up to me and say, well, because, it's the music you play at the fair, it's the things that are offered, it's, there isn't anything that even looks multicultural when you do those large public events. And we thought, oh, okay, light bulb. And
Opportunity.
let's do that. So that was one of the drivers. We've been listening, to what people are telling us, and that's where we are. Outreach is me. I'm on the outreach subcommittee, among other things. But what we've been doing on outreach is, oh, look.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I can't get the
That's
PowerPoint.
fine. We can do that, that's good.
Did I go past your outreach?
You're on 8.
Think so.
Yeah.
I'll go down, go up,
No,
yeah,
keep going,
to
keep going.
above. It's not 8.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to the
Right.
right part yet.
Yep.
There we go. So our outreach committee has been going to meetings, mostly virtual until now, with different organizations here in town. The Chamber of Commerce, different boards and commissions, the Board of Education, both political town committees. We have one of our members who is working on a racial history discussion series that's coming in the fall. It's a 10-part series, and I think it's going to be 10 parts.
And it's historical, not opinion.
It's historical. It's all about what happened here, and around us. So he's a great historian, and I think we will enjoy, learning from what he has to say. We have also reached out to other towns around us. We have had conversations with Glastonbury, Farmington. We are on the books to have a conversation with Bloomfield. And we tried to get Easton, Connecticut actually contacted us, but we never actually got to go to their meeting. We have participated in housing forums around the state regarding the housing issue because we felt like we needed to educate ourselves and our committee on this issue. And there's a lot to learn. Yeah, so we have both been attending forums, with statewide groups and other towns about housing issues, which is helping us. The housing subcommittee was born, so to speak, just a couple months ago with the Board of Selectmen. It came from actually a lot of talk around towns and with other groups other than just us. About asking the Board of Selectmen to form a task force. And the Board of Selectmen, while considering that, came to the realization, I would say, that without knowing what problem we're solving for, assigning a task force at this point was premature. Not that it wouldn't happen at some point in the future, but what the board asked us to do was to find out what question we are answering, what problem are we solving for when it comes to affordable housing. And in order to do that, we are going to have conversations with, all different stakeholders, and we've already started that process. Hopefully, we'll be able to have in-person groups, sort of like focus groups, invite community members in, other types of groups. There's a few Facebook groups who are discussing this. And then we can move forward to try to share what we know with the Board of Selectmen, because that's our job. We're here to advise them as much as we can on what we're seeing and what we're hearing, because we can dedicate those resources to that issue. And that's what we're doing. So we haven't, we're not making any decisions about what happens next. We're just gathering data on the ground. It may come to a more formal data gathering as far as housing goes. And in a minute, Nicole's going to tell you about our data subcommittee. But that has not been authorized by the Board of Selectmen yet. We were, once we have done some of our organizational work around what we're thinking, we will probably go back and talk to them about that. So Nicole's going to talk a little bit about our data subcommittee, because that's where a lot of our work is getting done right now, or will be soon.
So we have a proposal that I think is almost ready to be a signed contract, right? With two entities. There are a lot of resources of data, but they're not able to be disaggregated for us to really understand what's happening within the town level. We don't have enough of a sample size. So Data Haven and Health Equity Solutions are two organizations that really specialize in data on equity issues, and they're in our state. They have decided when the data subcommittee was gathering proposals, they would like to work together and collaborate to each participate in areas that they have some specialty in. And so qualitative and quantitative data on people's lived experiences, and not just numbers of people, but like what's behind the numbers, or what about people who are not living yet in Simsbury who could afford to live here but are choosing not to, or what about people who work here but don't live here, that kind of stuff. So they have a two-part process in the data subcommittee. The first is initial to scope out what are the important metrics for us to measure, what already exists, what doesn't exist, and what's new information we would need to find a methodology to gather. And then after that, we've been approved for the money to then go ahead and get in place those three pillars of information, basically, and let the data tell us in a thoughtful way that allows us to say, next year, we're going to measure the same thing. The year after, we're going to measure the same thing. We're not going to call it, well, we can't compare last year to this year because we didn't think of this. We want to think of this now so we can measure progress as we go forward. So I think they have been ready since March, but I think we're about to get work started on that work probably within the next month or so, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, we're ready to go. Data Haven had just indicated that they wanted to connect back with Health Equity Solutions to confirm the timeline. They didn't want to promise
Speak
anything
for them.
until exactly. So,
Okay, great.
but once they're ready, we're ready.
Awesome. And they'll be working with Melissa and Tom.
Yes,
Yes.
from the Tom Fitzgerald with many Toms.
Okay.
From the town
Tom in the
manager, right,
manager's office, Tom.
Right.
So we're really looking forward to getting the data. And one of the things we're thinking of at September Feast, for example, is at our booth, not just explaining who we are and showing some of our things that we've already done and plan to do, but let's take the opportunity to talk with people that stop by and say, what are your experiences? What's going great here? What do you love about this place? What do you do differently? Like just to start having some initial qualitative information from that granular interaction.
In an informal way. Learned a lot just from having a forum. I think we can learn more by engaging people in a more casual public setting. So we plan on doing that. We have a very small amount of money to do some public engagement work. I'm not going to call it advertising because we're not advertising anything. What we're trying to do is let people know that we exist and essentially promote the Let's Talk series, so that people will get more engaged. One of our goals is to make sure that every event that we put on is open to everybody and that everybody feels welcome to come in and share their opinion, regardless of what that opinion is, because we don't want to, make it so that people feel like it's a hostile environment if they come in and say something. And I think so far we've been able to do that, but again, it's been a relatively small sample size compared to what's out there. And, we watch social media, we have our own Facebook page and what people are saying. And I think there is a lot of room for conversation to happen that would be beneficial to the residents here, just to be able to talk about how they're feeling, because it's been a very stressful time, and we understand that. It's been stressful for all of us for many different reasons, and everybody is feeling that differently. So we want to be that space where people can come and talk about these things.
The other thing I wanted to say, just in the outreach and data area, we get a lot of inspiration from other places that are already doing this work or a little bit ahead of us. We're finding that in the state of Connecticut, we're getting a lot of questions from people who feel like we're already ahead of them, But we've looked at, two of our, I think, favorite examples are Montgomery, Ohio, and, Decatur, Georgia.
Mhm.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Montgomery from Cincinnati area.
Yes, like Montgomery.
We actually spoke to them. We had a
Yeah.
virtual meeting with some people in Montgomery, and it was great, you know.
Very interesting,
They
yeah.
were telling us all about what they're doing. Decatur obviously is a much bigger program, but they've got a lot of energy behind what they're doing. So we're always looking for ideas, and
Very interesting.
as Nicole said, we've been getting a lot of inquiries about what we're doing, because I think we have sort of gotten ahead of the curve here, which is great. You know, it's great for Simsbury, and I think as far as what you're doing, I think that is something to celebrate, you know, that we have started this process of engaging the public on these topics.
And we feel like this town really is in a climate of favor where bipartisan, there's been engagement and general support for this type of work. So I mean, we're not gonna be doing it, but we can be the ones that are passionate and think of things and network and propose them. And so I'm really encouraged and excited by it.
So we have some slides coming up that are just a little bit of Simsbury data, which you probably saw in your package.
The housing one, I'll just say, real quick, stay on that one real quick, because I promised that we would talk about that. Just that I think the plan is for the subcommittee to start doing exactly what we're doing here and connect with the organizations who are already in this space, addressing this in our town, and surrounding towns, and we can learn from them. And some of the questions we have is what housing is available in Simsbury, what are the housing needs, and are there gaps from price ranges and home burden levels and so forth. Do we need a housing needs assessment? We have a bid from Regional Planning Associates,
Yeah.
RPA
I
Association.
think they are affiliated with the Department of Housing. I could be wrong about that. Like they're a state funded
I think they are as well.
Yeah.
So we've learned a lot from them and asked, what would it cost to repeat that analysis for Fairfield County, which they've done by town here for Simsbury. So we have an estimate if we wanted to proceed. We'd love to have collaboration and share the costs with some of the nearby towns, but I'm not sure any of them are ready to do this work just yet. And I know that the housing group is we're both on the housing subcommittee, is that we want to use data to inform our decisions.
Right.
We don't want to just be guessing.
We don't want to guess. We don't want to, work on emotions or otherwise. We want the data to tell us what the problem is. So that's what we're doing. So if you go down a little further, you're going to see some.
Passed out.
These were just some sample survey questions that we were taking from other towns have done it. Those are the Simsbury versus Hartford County demographics.
If you look at,
These are the Simsbury town employee demographics. And this is the Board of Education. This has changed, the Board of Ed has changed a little bit since this was provided to us. There are now 2 more African American administrative employees in the Board of Education.
we don't know about teachers, so we'd have to refresh that.
I don't know what the answer is on that.
We're getting publicity. I think that was the point of that slide, right?
We've actually started a whole other file on our publicity because it's great, it's good.
Most of the time, it's
Most of the
not
time
always.
it's good, it's not always good, but that's what we're doing. This is the resolution passed by the Board of Selectmen.
That was a great
It
stand.
was a great starting point. These were just some of the background. And here we are at the end. Bob asked us to think about things that we could discuss with youth. And so we are open for questions.
So a general question is, this topic is
Right.
broad, deep, has a long history, what have you. And to the extent that you say, we have a goal in mind, which is to try to make Simsbury more diverse. Like, how do you take all of these subcommittees and actions that you're talking about, forums and education and awareness, and actually turn it into actionable, tangible things where you see results? Is it just listening to people, coming up with good ideas? Hey, why don't we try this? And you talk about your September feast, and that came as a direct result of people coming to you with thoughts and ideas. So that's something you do. Do you see that's how this is all going to evolve? Because I think about this in terms of 10 to 15 years out, right? And saying, here's Simsbury today, what do we want to look like 10, 15 years down the road? And so is there general consensus that we do want to be more diverse, we do want to be more inclusive? You kind of make that assumption, the answer is yes, but so then the question is now, how do we get there?
How do we get there? And that's what our data subcommittee is for. That's why we need to start there. Data Haven is a great organization. They've done a lot of work here in the state of Connecticut, collecting this data. And that's where we want to start. And as Nicole said, we're going to do it again. So, in a few years, we're going to do the survey again and see if the answers are different, because we have heard from people of color and what experiences they've had in Simsbury, and they are very different than what a Caucasian person might have experienced in Simsbury. And so we want to know that, we're hoping that people will participate in our data collection so that we can talk about what the answers are. Maybe it won't be bad, maybe it'll be good, maybe, but we'll know one way or the other, and then we'll be able to measure it again. For your group, how many minority-owned businesses you have here in town. Will that change? We don't know. Will the type of products, one of the things we've heard through our Let's Talk series is some interesting comments about what's available at grocery stores.
Or hair.
Like hair salons, all different things that might, not on its face, look anything out of the ordinary to the average Simsbury resident, but to some Simsbury residents, it's not particularly welcoming. So
And they have to go to other towns.
they have to go
Spend the
somewhere.
money
They have to go
buy the
somewhere
things they're
else.
looking for.
So we heard while we were on one of our Let's Talk series, and this woman was like, "Where do I buy this?" And this other woman said, "Honey, you have to go to Bloomfield." And then those are things we should know. So that person now is being told to go spend their money in Bloomfield because they can't buy what they want here in Simsbury. And that is an economic development issue. So that's what we need to know.
Restaurants we want to go to, we have to go to Hartford or Bloomfield or
Exactly.
Windsor. I have 2 Black daughters as well, and I can tell you that skin and hair care, some of the magazines that they look for, that kind of thing, are they're not here. So we just knew, we just figured out where do we have to go, what do we have to do to make that work. And then the more I'm seeing, and hearing diverse people having similar situations, I'm like, oh, there's an opportunity here for us to meet the needs of our own residents with different offerings, both restaurants, maybe hair salons, certainly supplies and groceries. And if you look at census data, this is going, we're heading toward more diversity. And so to get ahead of it and offer and attract people would only help the town be economically thriving and robust in 15 years or whatever.
I think from what you're saying, and speaking just in the economic development realm, we would need to have the people before you're going to have the businesses. You need to have the demand. In hair care, I don't know that there's a hair care store for anybody in Simsbury. You have to go outside of Simsbury. Then they more than likely don't offer us a big selection. Restaurants, same thing. They're doing their own data. So until we have the people, so feet on the street, and then you see that. The only thing I would ask, and not for you to solve, but if you had this discussion about what to find in a grocery store, what's the next step? Is somebody going to reach out to a Fitzgerald's, a Big Y, the ones that are actually in our town? Even Stop and Shop is actually in our town.
Right.
So could we see if they provide?
That actually was the answer with Stop and Shop. Different Stop and Shop and a different carries different products.
Okay.
And that's why that person went to a different town to shop in the same stop, to shop in a Stop and Shop. And so I think where you're headed with this question is the data is gonna inform us on that.
Yep.
So we're hoping that people will see it as a benefit to themselves to participate in the survey, because that's the only way we're gonna find this out. And I know, I think it was Main Street just did a survey.
Yeah.
Yep, we're hoping that they're gonna share.
Yep.
And, some of these things, you know, may show up there too.
Yeah, I was gonna, that's one of
Yeah.
So, we did, it's, one of the things that the Board of Selectmen asked the EDC to focus on was to update the marketing materials. So, that was the original request when we first formed the EDC, we're just now getting around to it.
Mhm.
Just completed the survey. It's more geared towards marketing and promoting the town of Simsbury.
Mhm.
And, you know, all the key questions, why did you move to Simsbury? What do you like about Simsbury? So, the results of that survey will actually be presented on the August 9th Board of Selectmen meeting.
Great.
So I would encourage you to sit in on that meeting.
Yes.
The only thing we have been told is that in the past, maybe the primary reason why people moved to Simsbury was for the schools, so
Mhm.
that's no longer the case.
Mm.
That the reason people move to Simsbury now is more for the quality of life.
Right.
However, that's defined,
Mhm.
right? And so that just means that there's, to me, I look at that and say that's a value statement, that for what I pay in taxes,
Mhm.
I get an awful lot in return. And so that's a good quality of life for me. Now, it may not be for everybody, but we're all very interested to do a deeper dive and understand the data better. I don't see why there's, you know, it's public information. I don't see why we can't share that information with you. I was even thinking a little differently in that I want to make sure we include your organization in our promotional materials
Mhm.
to say, how is Simsbury addressing this particular issue that is a nationwide issue? So if I'm on the outside thinking about moving to Simsbury or, you know, bringing a business into Simsbury,
Mhm.
if I'm a business, I'm looking for diversity, I'm looking for talented people, I'm looking for highly skilled folks. That's going to come in a wide range of
Yep.
sources, right? So do I want to necessarily come to a town that is, you know, is closed doors and is not open? No, this is a town that recognizes it has a problem, has a need. So from my perspective, I'd like to see what we can do to help in our marketing materials to promote the work that you're all doing. Because I think it's a way to, if someone sees it from the outside, it would be interesting. You would see that as a net positive, not as a, so.
I hope so. That's that's a goal.
And I think part of that, you know, who's the guy that basically they ask you answer that model, I can't remember his name, but in business. And it's understanding what your customers' needs are, the people you're talking to, your audience's needs, and then answering the questions they're gonna have. And a part of the realtor information would be like, why do people look? What do they look at? Why do they not choose after they look here? Or where else are they considering when they consider here? So we can really say, oh, that's their mindset. Let's do our marketing to that.
Mhm.
And yes, we have Spirit Works, we're doing work, and I think it's wonderful. And there will be people say, you know, I have an opinion of Simsbury. Well, what is the perception? And then will this information move it along?
What's the reality?
Yes.
I'll tell you, Simsbury Main Street Partnership also did a panel with realtors. So they'll be able to give you some
I was gonna
information
ask
about
about
that.
Yes.
Was it
Awesome.
residential
Why
or
do-
commercial or both?
Probably just residential realtors. And Nicole, exactly what you said. Why do people move to town? Why do they stay? So this was the realtor's perspective.
Mhm.
Why do they pick Simsbury over another town? Or if they picked another town, why?
Why?
So great information you'll be able to get from Simsbury Main Street. And they
Like
did,
candy.
they did another panel with restaurants and the hotels.
Mm.
Simsbury Inn, the 1820 House. So they have some great data. I think that you would be able to collaborate, maybe help you. Knowing why people come to visit from the restaurants and the hotels and inn, also really good to know.
Yeah,
So
really
it
good.
was, I was on both of the panels. Very, very good information.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's what we want to know.
Really good.
So
Yes.
I think there's lots of ways that we can work with groups such as yours. you know, to move this forward. You know, it's not just us, it's gonna take everybody doing this. So, you know, we're just trying to push the ball into the field, you know, so that people can start playing, you know, like, here's the ball, go do it, you know, but really, you know, we don't wanna, you know, this is not like a personal mission for us. We're really committed to making Simsbury a more welcoming place because, you know, some of the things we heard a few years ago at the forum, you know, you don't want your town to sound like that when you're, that's not what we want, what anybody wants. So there's a lot of things that happen that, you know, you don't even realize they're happening because it's not your lived experience. And you have to hear from everybody to know what other people's lived experience looks like.
A small project, I don't even know if it's based in, I think it's based in London. It's Rick Brush, one of our very important members, told us about it. I think it's called a photo project or something.
Mhm.
Basically, they give little disposable cameras to different people in town and ask them to just go around and take pictures, however many, through what it looks like through their eyes. What do they experience? Where do they go? What do things look like for them? And then they put together a display at like a library, and it shows you what different people see. And it's just a way to really see through their eyes, literally. They didn't make it up. They didn't paint it. This is a photograph of what I looked at. And so I kind of played for that in my head, like, a lot of people have phones. Could we just organize something and have them do their own thing? So if we're thinking about these kinds of things for ways to help us understand each other and what our 25,000 member town shared experiences are.
Well, and I think if you look, like we mentioned Montgomery, Ohio, but the reason we got to Montgomery, Ohio, and it was kind of odd, but there was a video they did, and it's called I Am Montgomery.
Yeah.
And so we watched the video and we're saying, wow, look at this. These are just ordinary people. Anyway, some of them were their town councilmen and other people, but they all looked different. And they all came out and said, I am all they said was, I am Montgomery. And they just had this video montage.
It's not even 2 minutes.
It's not even 2 minutes. It's just people coming out and saying, this is what I am. And if I can find that video, and I looked at that town and I thought, wow, that's a great town. You know, I want to be like Montgomery.
I grew up in Cincinnati and I worked at Procter & Gamble after college for a few years, and I'm like, it's right there. I would never have guessed that video.
They've got the best rib joint going.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so good.
And it's
It is great.
and I thought, we could do that. and you know,
So
as far as
September Feast, when people are gathering, we're trying to make that happen.
Could you put a slide about things we're kind of doing? Charmaine, I'm gonna reach out to ask you.
Okay, what?
Well, as we're thinking about, you know, our branding materials.
Yes,
You kind of take it upon yourself to ensure that we include some of this materials from Spirit into that, and figure out a way to make that happen. I don't know what it looks like. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but given that we are going to be working on that, I do think this is something we want to incorporate into our branding materials.
sure. Since Sarah's not here tonight and Jeff isn't on these calls, I will email it to them and, you know, say that this is important and we want this in part of it because this is new information for them.
Right.
Jeff Dorneberg? Yeah. Working with him as well.
he's our public engagement guy, so he knows.
Oh, well, then that's great. And Jeff is fantastic. So that's good. Good.
That helped us with one of our presentations. We applied for several grants, you know, jointly with the library or the Performing Arts Center, trying to drum up some money to do all these wonderful things. And Sarah was very helpful with our grant application. So she's one of the things that we were going to ask you about was whether or not you wanted to find somebody, there's housing, if you're interested in that, or to Spirit in general, so that there's somebody that, you know, if something's coming out, you know, there's that we want to talk about, or, you know, if you have there's a new business coming to town, something is happening, you know. I think it's one of those things where information would be,
Yeah.
would be a good thing.
So we obviously, one of our key roles is to be a liaison on
Mhm.
some of these things. And so I do think that's something we want to do.
Mhm.
I don't know who,
Okay, well, you
I'll
can
ask
think
the
about that,
volunteer.
yep.
and we'll talk about
Hey,
that.
Bob?
Yes.
Bob?
Tom?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Spirit is familiar with Horizon programs that are run by
Walker,
Westminster School and Ethel Walker School.
that's high, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One of our members is a teacher at Ethel Walker, so Carol Clark Flanagan. So we get a lot of information from Ethel Walker about
Yeah, and
programs.
Westminster, Westminster's involved in that too, and it's bringing inner city kids to Simsbury, to the campuses of those schools for 6
Mhm.
weeks in the summer, and trying to get them to their next grade level, grades 1 through 8. So they keep the kids for 8 years. And they also teach them to swim, and they've used a library, the Simsbury Library, and they're fully funded by the private schools. So I don't know whether that's relevant to what you're doing, but it introduces a whole group of young children to Simsbury and to areas of Simsbury. It's a very good program.
I'm sure it won't surprise you to know that we heard from some of those students when we were doing the forum. And they had a different perspective on what Simsbury looked like from their point of view. I heard from a couple of students coming from different, we heard from open choice kids and, you know, my example story that I tell all the time is that, and it's not to place blame on anybody, but one girl came and she's now in middle school, but she talked about being at Squadron Line Elementary School and one day waiting for the bus, you know, they all come out and they wait, go to the bus lines and wait to go home. And a very nice teacher came up to her and said, honey, the Hartford bus is over there. And she's like, yeah, but I don't live in Hartford. So,
I don't know if that's relevant.
What is it?
I'm just saying that those two schools in Simsbury are doing very relevant, good, positive work on the education side. And it might have some relevance to what you're talking about.
Top, our student liaison rotates each year, and we have Evan Chen this year, who's the son of Jason Chen, who's the owner of the 5 restaurants in town. And Evan works at the Horizons program at Westminster every summer. So that would be a really good source for us to connect with them and understand what he thinks he's observing as their experience, or maybe connect with a couple and ask questions. And
our last student liaison was Amika Chopra. She just graduated. She was terrific. She gave us a lot of insight into how students view things a little differently than the adults in the room do.
thank you for bringing that
Yeah,
up.
thanks. That's good. We'll definitely keep our eye on that.
Okay. So we'll take item there as an action item and we'll get back to you.
Terrific. Does anybody have any other questions we can help with?
The last thing I'll say is what has been super helpful information, of course, very relevant, is Mike Glidden's development updates
Yep.
to see what is happening, what is currently active, where are we sitting now, and what does it look like going forward in the visible near term. And so that information has really helped with discussions, for example, on housing. We don't have unlimited land to just do random developments that would be a great ideal thing, solution for a number of people and multiple uses. But where there is existing property with the work that's going on, we're hearing that there are some diverse businesses coming and there are some multi-use projects, and there always is the question from Bill Rice on, do we have an affordable component? So it is gaining traction, and it's really encouraging to hear those discussions with that on people's minds.
And we want to thank you for including us in your last meeting where you had the
I was just gonna
presentation.
ask you, do you want to sit in on, Mike does a quarterly update with us. He also does it with the chamber. So,
Yes.
Yes,
you could attend either one of those. We'll make you aware of both.
we
of
would
them.
love to do that. Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll make sure that you're.
Well, Melissa knows where to find us, so.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah,
please
that would
keep
be
us
great.
Is Mark Scully on?
For sustainability, yeah, that's the key.
Yeah.
He's
He's
still
got
there,
it.
he's still here.
Mark, you
Yes,
wanna
I'm
ask your
still
sustain-
here. Yep. Oh, with my dog. Actually, with my son. Okay, Cortana. Yeah, I'll make this brief, but this is, first of all, thank you for letting me listen in on this presentation. It's one more reason to just be really proud of living in Simsbury. And I look forward to a follow-up conversation with the Spirit folks, because I think there's a lot in the Sustainable CT program that overlaps, and I think we could do some stuff together and maybe provide you some resources, which could be interesting and help us get some points for Sustainable CT. So I look forward to following up.
Yes,
Absolutely. I think it's one of your requirements, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I remember
Okay.
Great.
Cheryl, Nicole, thank you very, very much.
that. You are very welcome.
informative.
Thank you for having us. I hope we didn't go too much over our time.
didn't.
Yeah, we did. Okay.
that's all.
Yeah.
We look forward to getting
I
back.
love it.
Well, I'll see you Friday. Okay. That's right.
Thank you.
Nice, thanks.
Sorry about the
Bye.
technical
Bye.
glitch.
Okay.
No problem. Nice to meet you in person too.
All right, back to our agenda. Quick review of the EDC, by the way, we had a 6:45 hard stop, Melissa just confirmed.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Oh, and then, yeah.
So a marketing project update, Charmaine, do you have an update?
I was actually, oh, sorry, my phone just rang. Hold on, it's my daughter. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's my turn to talk and then my phone rings. Sorry about that.
Hi.
I know. I was gone for 2 weeks, but I mean, I was reading emails while I was gone, and I know, the survey was finalized and everything, but things are being worked on, so to speak. So I don't really have anything final to say, or even drafts or anything else from the survey getting done, which was only done, the end of last month. But I will email this to Jeff and Sarah and make sure this gets put in the mix. And it's great that Spirit Group knows and works with Jeff anyway, so he's familiar with all of this. So that's, I'll make sure I do that.
Just a reminder, this everybody here that the results of the survey will be done at the August 9th Board of Selectmen meeting. Would encourage everybody to attend. And
I have the full results, but he was, that he was going to boil it down. So, because it was like 100 pages or something, it was really long. So, but yeah, I think that date's been given. I know it's in my date book, but I hope to be there too.
So the pandemic follow-up outreach. Tom Earl and I have been making phone calls. Last year, we were asked kind of through a CCM to do a townwide analysis of your businesses, of your nonprofits, of your churches, what have you, to see how everybody was handling or managing through the pandemic. And we took a little different tack in that we knew Main Street and the chamber were fully engaged with our businesses, so there's no reason to really reach out to them. Well, we did outreach to our nonprofits and the churches and the private schools in town just to see how they've all done. And then in late June, July, Tom and I kind of did a follow-up. We talked to you at the beginning. Now we want to see how you did afterwards. And I'll share some of my feedback, and Tom, you can do the same. I talked a lot of the food pantries and Department of Social Services to see how we were doing. The interesting feedback was the demand was, it doubled in the town of Simsbury. Kristen would tell you we had more than double the need, the number of families that needed help and support. The good news was that she was able to meet it.
I heard the food donations have been really terrific.
Food donations have been excellent. Money donations have been terrific. It's been a combination of food donations, not only from the town, but from organizations like Food Share
Sure.
and other places. But you also saw that out at Gifts of Love, and there's another food pantry that I work with up in Granby that getting food was not a problem. It was making sure that we were able to get the people that had the need to get there. So, if you can say this is good news, the good news is the levels have come down to more in line with where they were prior to the pandemic.
That's pretty.
And, but one of the interesting phenomena is when people got the checks from the federal government, instead of spending it on like bills and other needs, they wouldn't want food. Because you still have this perception of if I'm going to a food pantry for my food stamps, then I'm quote unquote needy and poor. And there's still a stigma associated with that. So folks are working through that issue. So that was pretty interesting. The churches I talked to all took advantage of PPE, used it the right way. It was extremely beneficial for them, so they've come out financially okay. Obviously, they've done some different things to continue to reach out to their congregation, their membership. One in particular had an outdoor facility already in place, so they've been doing a lot of outdoor services. They also had a very large barn where they could meet, and through the state guidelines, other services. So people have gotten creative to do what they needed to do. Tom, you want to provide a quick update on your?
Yeah, I reached out to 4 of the churches in town in 3 private schools, heard back from 3 of the churches and 2 of the private schools. And they all survived and are stable going forward. Some of the comments were that the churches were worried about attendance and how that might be affected over the year. And the churches all came out saying their attendance stayed basically stable. The finances were stable. One of the churches received a $50,000 PPE, which allowed them to do a lot of the work they needed to do to have Zoom calls to their constituents. They also found that the Zoom, the technological side of that, they were able to attract more people. One of the churches has a preschool, Little Lambs, that was only partially enrolled last year, but will be fully enrolled this fall. And that church didn't see any direct request to the town for help. St. Mary's Church, they have a new pastor, I guess. So I just talked to him. Thinks they're getting back to normal. Attendance is up. Their school will be in full session come this fall. And then the Farmington Valley Jewish Synagogue, they had Zoom with all their people. They're getting back to normal. They're asking if the town could help them in some way. If there's any aid out there to help them on the technological side, the Zoom side. And then private schools, Ethel Walker, it was a tough year for them, but they came through it financially okay. Their enrollment is steady. They had one request from the town. They're developing a master plan, a master building plan for their school to expand their size. And they wanted to know if they could have an opportunity to present that to some entity in the town, whether it be the EDC or the town, other places in the town. Westminster School, fully enrolled during the year. They had classes all year, very little Zoom. Fundraising was at an all-time high, and they're fully enrolled for next year. And they appreciated the town reaching out to them. So I think all those churches and schools survived and came out feeling that they were in a good place to move forward.
Thanks for doing all that work, Tom. a co-working space and supporting entrepreneurs and Melissa here. I know we got some additional funding. We've expanded the scope of the
Yeah,
project.
exactly. So I think we had given this group the update about what we were working on for the co-working website proposal that we were partnering with Sherm here at the library as well as the Chamber of Commerce. The reason we had not yet presented that formally to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance for funding is because we wanted to think more comprehensively about, you know, the federal funds that are coming in and how we're going to use them. So that the idea was to sort of package that piece with a couple of other projects. So we were just sort of waiting to develop those and put that all together before we presented that formally.
Okay.
So
Didn't the chamber have, for putting some of that stuff together, and we're kind of on the edge of moving forward, so that was stopped as well. But engaging that, I can't remember who was the person that was gonna start working on that.
right,
Respect
yep,
to
so
the
that would
website.
be part of the proposal is to work with the chamber to do the actual website platform. So they had put together the sort of proposal, including the costs associated with it. So we have that. That one was pretty much close to final, but we just wanted to make sure we had the other projects sort of fleshed out before we put it all together.
Do you have a time frame of when you think you might be able to wrap that all up?
We were aiming for the August Board of Selectmen meeting, so I'm not, that's what we were aiming for,
Okay.
so, yeah.
We'll look for an update at our next meeting. Okay. Moving on to item number 3, stakeholder liaison updates. Sarah's taking some well-deserved time off, so is not here today. I did not see Morgan in attendance.
She's
So-
also off this week, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay. I'll just make one comment. We have a government affairs meeting every month with the chamber, and one of the things that's different about it this year is that we're working very closely with them to make sure we provide speakers for their meetings, and we are taking people from the town government to participate. Maria participated, talked about the tax situation for the year. Mike Glidden has done a presentation on development. We've had Steve Antonio from the Design Review Board present about his organization and how they work out, and Dave Ryan spoke at our last meeting. And that's been working very well. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the businesses that they appreciate the updates, they find it very educational, and it's a good two-way conversation as well, because we're getting good feedback from them on things we're going to be focused on. So that's going well. The other comment I'll make is at the beginning of our last meeting, we were talking about the restaurants in town. And the comment was made that most all of them are really struggling right now, like trying to find help. And we saw with Plan B, it was in the paper that they were just going to, they closed the restaurant and only doing pickups. Yeah. The only one she thought was really doing really well was Mill Rights, and a lot of that's driven by the creativity of the owner and some of the things you're trying to do. But they're all kind of hurting with just trying to get help. So I know she and Morgan and Sarah were going to try to put some program together to see what they can do about trying to match people up with looking for jobs with the restaurant folks. I'm not sure how that's come together or has not come together yet.
I'm not sure of Morgan's piece. I haven't talked to her about it, but Simsbury Main Street and Sarah's piece, they have. They've been pretty successful. So
Okay.
Business will say, this is what I'm looking for. And what I've seen on social media, somebody will say, I'm looking for a job. And so Sarah, Simsbury Main Street will chime in and say, hey, have you seen this? This business is looking for this. So
Okay.
it's been a nice dialogue.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah,
So they're
but you're
doing-
absolutely right. The restaurants are having a hard time.
Is Sherm, I didn't see Sherm on the, okay, so, Ron, any updates from zoning?
I guess the tractor supply that's moving forward. Seems like there's been a number of good projects that they said there was a peak of number of dollar permits they've had issued based on all the projects that are ongoing. The big one last week was the Gerard Simscroft. They approved that very large apartment complex, and everybody was really excited about it.
The one on Amherst Boulevard?
Yeah, the only concern I have, and I actually, first time I ever spoke up at one of these meetings, I should just sit there. I spoke as a citizen because no one had brought the question up. I don't know if you've ever heard of the issues they've had down at Oakdale Theater, where it gets noisy and it's an indoor theater, but they had opened up a part of the theater to be outdoors and then they got shut down and kind of killed that whole thing. And if you read through what happened, it was the neighbors just said, even though town zoning had, they were trying to get their hands around it, make it acceptable to everybody. The state has some noise, maximum noise allowed. So, and it's really about 45 decibels. It's ridiculous at all. Eventually, the property comes around and said, no, this is the state requirement. We don't care what you guys are doing. It's somebody who said, it's out of our hands. We can't do anything. And I asked that question. The answer was, oh, we're working with the facility,
Performing arts.
performing arts, and they're really happy and they're going to work well with us. It's like, that wasn't the question. You guys may be great, but you just need one family that says, hey, my kid goes to bed at 7 o'clock at night.
So
This is the state ordinance.
that's a good
You're
point.
done. So I don't, at this
Bill,
point,
hopefully. they'll
Ron,
take that.
I listened to that. I saw that zoning presentation and that I heard you ask that question. You did not get an answer. I agree with you on that. That was an interesting presentation. And going back to that Spirit presentation, Bob, at that zoning presentation, they were talking about subsidized housing at the end. And the builders were saying that they were thinking of, they knew the town had a tax abatement program and they thought they could work something out with subsidized housing and the tax abatement program. And that was going to be part of the ongoing discussions. That's one of the projects I'm following. I thought it was a very interesting presentation.
I think Chris Nelson is the builder, and I think he's trying to target 10%. Which Bill Rice's attention immediately when it was brought up. But yeah, it's something they're taking a look at. So hopefully it'll come to fruition. But to your point,
I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think it's approved and it's a done deal. So
Yep.
we'll see if someone says, no, it's not meeting the state requirements.
My understanding is those are going to be rentals. And if that's the case, then you would hope that anybody having the conversation or taking a reservation would say, we understand you can see the performing arts is right here. Do you know they have a concert series and, quiet hours might be 10 o'clock or something like that. But that's the expectation, and education. That's what we would hope. No, you're right. It's a good point.
It's out of control. I mean, it's beyond what anybody can say at this point. They can give that information and maybe try to discourage people that have kids or whatever, but let them know that's going to potentially going to be loud. Sure. There's 7 to 9:30 is a lot of those concerts.
Yeah.
finance.
And I don't even know if the way I was reading the state ordinances, I don't even think it matters. There isn't a time limit. Just any time of day, if you exceed a certain decibel beyond the limit of your property, including any entertainment things, it's not allowed. So, okay, don't know. One thing on that, and I guess the Spirit people are going to be looking into this housing, and it's come up in zoning. The state looks at affordable housing differently than most people do. Only 1/3 of all the single-family residents in Simsbury are affordable if you look at the cost and mortgage rates and whatever you can afford it with. And I forgot what some percentage of the a wage rate. I think it was poverty rate or something. Maybe it's 110. But what the state requires is, even if you can afford it, they want to have deed restrictions on those properties. The state to consider to be affordable. The deed restrictions basically disallow the property owner, purchaser or owner to make any profit on it beyond what they need to put into the property. It's really makes it very difficult to try to move your property dramatically or whatever. If you kind of takes the whole incentive out of it.
It's a complex issue.
It's a very complex issue. So we do have a
We've
huge.
had this discussion with Mike Liddon, so that's what, and Spirit is aware of this too. It's hard to, the natural occurring affordable housing in town far exceeds the deed restricted, and the deed restricted is very hard. It's actually really hard to get a mortgage. There's a lot of things you have to go through. And then when you go to sell it, you typically don't make a profit. So your investment
You're not allowed to.
is potentially shot. So maybe we could come about in a different way.
It's just when they gather the data, if they move strictly at what the state considers.
But I know he's only got a couple more minutes left
Sorry.
to finish this meeting.
Okay, no updates on design review or the sustainability commission. Mike, will give us an update on the all projects down the road. Quickly, just for the folks that are in the meeting format going forward, would you prefer doing a hybrid? Would you prefer doing it in person? Is there any consideration? Any thoughts?
Bob, the only comment I would make is the sound quality is not that great. If you're, from my point of view.
Okay.
I'm not sure that, maybe that's just my computer, but it's hard to hear some of the comments from people.
I just got a new mini laptop so I can carry it everywhere to travel. It's like 11 inches big. It's a brand new Microsoft one. It's like I could hear just fine. But personally, unless I know that everybody in the room is vaccinated, I don't want to be in a room full of people that could have the virus. So I'm still trying to, I have family members that if I was to get it and to give it to them, they would be in bad shape. So I prefer a hybrid method so that I can still attend the meetings.
Okay, Peter?
Hybrid.
We will continue with hybrid going forward. I think it also gives us a great opportunity for people, the flexibility, if you can't make it in person to do it. So we'll continue with that. Okay, final item on the agenda is approval of minutes from June 23rd. Everybody had a chance to read the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Motion, Ron gives a motion to approve. We have a second.
Second?
The minutes approved.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
Melissa Burrows. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
15 seconds left.
Ron, Peter, motion to adjourn, Ron seconds. Thank you, everybody. This worked, I think, worked very well. So appreciate your, thank you.